Your body holds a self-healing capacity that operates in the background, reorganizing tissue, adjusting the nervous system, completing repairs that conscious effort could never reach. But at 4 specific points in the trunk and wrists, this process stops. In these locations, old contractions hold the flow trapped before it arrives. These are the 4 hidden knots that block self-healing power at the threshold of completion. In this video, you discover where each one is, why the nervous system created them, and which specific gesture the body recognizes. Untying the knots of healing begins with knowing where they are. Biology calls this process autopoiesis, the capacity any living organism has to produce itself, maintain itself, and reorganize from within. Stephen Porges, in developing the polyvagal theory, showed that the autonomic nervous system operates in hierarchy. When it perceives consistent safety, it invests energy in repair, deep digestion, and cellular regeneration. When it remains on alert, it redirects that energy toward defense. Healing waits for the organism to perceive that the danger has passed. Umberto Maturana and Francisco Varela, biologists who developed the concept of autopoiesis, demonstrated that living organisms maintain themselves in continuous sequences of self-repair. The problem appears when this flow is blocked before completing. Those who live with this carry a diffuse sense of incompleteness. Something that began, rose to a certain point, and remained suspended. The knots we will untie today inhabit exactly these zones of suspension. Medieval alchemy described solve et coagula, dissolve what is hardened so that new form can organize. Applied to the body, this principle reveals something precise. Tissues contracted for protection need to be dissolved with gentleness. Force applied against rigidity only deepens it. The corpus hermeticum taught that true transmutation happens in the most silent chamber of the organism. The 4 knots we will work with today are exactly these chambers, each with its own language of release. Each knot you will find here has unfoldings that go beyond a single video. I have prepared a map with 22 somatic cycles that deepen this release zone by zone, with specific practices for the diaphragm, solar plexus, and other areas. Access to this exclusive material is in the first pinned comment, worth checking before it is gone. Now let us identify the knots. The first is in the diaphragm, the great muscular dome that separates the side of the heart from the side of the viscera. When the nervous system learns to operate in chronic vigilance, it partially contracts and loses mobility. Breathing rises, gets trapped in the upper half, and leaves the base quiet. The physiological consequence is direct. The long exhale, which activates the ventral vagal nerve and signals safety to the organism, keeps shortening. Porges showed that this vagal signaling is what authorizes the body to invest energy in repair. When this muscle stops transmitting the signal, self-healing tries to advance and stalls at that point. To check now, place one palm on the sternum and the other on the navel. Breathe naturally and observe which of the two moves first. If the chest rises before the belly expands, the first knot is active. At the solar plexus, for fingers above the navel, the second knot is located. The vagus nerve branches here to innervate the digestive organs, making this region the center where unmetabolized emotions become bodily density. Shame that was never spoken, retained fear of judgment, anger with no outlet. Bessel van der Kolk documented how traumatic experiences leave marks in visceral systems before any cognitive registration. Thomas Myers, in mapping the facial chains, showed that chronic containment at this point affects posture, breathing, and the capacity to sustain presence. This accumulated pressure consumes vital force instead of distributing it. The person perceives this as persistent weight in the abdomen, suppressed creativity, difficulty acting without clear reason. The sternum hides the third knot, especially where the thymus is located. This gland, central to immunity, responds to the emotional state of the system. When the chest closes for repeated protection, it loses the capacity to radiate presence and the organism enters reactive mode. Peter Levine described how incomplete stress responses keep this territory in chronic semi-retraction. The person continues producing, helping, resisting, receiving, resting, allowing genuine care to enter. These movements lose passage. This chamber is the portal of receiving. In a state of containment, the body processes the exterior only from inside out. without opening to what comes back. At the wrists, where the cardiac rhythm meets the extremities, the fourth knot manifests. When the nervous system loses coherence, information arrives fragmented throughout the body. The hands become cold, presence becomes diffuse, movement stalls even when the intention exists. The sensation of observing one's own life from a certain distance settles in. In the hermetic tradition, they were portals of continuity, the heartbeat becoming palpable in the skin. When this link breaks, action stops being an expression of presence and becomes dissociated effort. There, when that contact is lost, everything demands more than it should. When the four knots begin to yield, reorganization follows a sequence the organism conducts. The diaphragm recovers mobility and the exhale deepens without conscious effort. The solar plexus, released from the obligation to retain what was not digested, produces warmth, spontaneous yawns, small sighs that indicate internal pressure dissolving. The sternum softens, breathing descends to the belly, and a capacity to receive without hardening begins to appear. The wrists become more present, the hands warmer, and action begins to feel like the natural extension of what happens inside. The practice of untying these knots uses 4 gestures, one for each zone. Each speaks directly to the region where the protection settled. For the diaphragm, sit with the spine upright without rigidity. Place your hands on the lateral ribs. Inhale, directing the air there, feeling the rib cage expand to the sides. The exhale should be longer than the inhale. Inhale for 4 counts. Exhale for 6. 4 to 5 cycles. The signal that it worked is the rhythm slowing on its own. Touch awakens the solar plexus. Find the 0.4 fingers above the navel and place the finger pads with very light pressure. Make slow clockwise circles. Breathe with low amplitude. Allow any sensation to appear without judgment. Warmth, pulsation, yawning. 2 to 3 minutes here. Sternum activation. Gently close the right hand and make light taps on the center of the bone at a frequency of 2 taps per second. Breathe during the gesture. This signal awakens the thymus and communicates to the immune system that it can leave the reactive state. 30 to 40 repetitions are sufficient. The wrists close the circuit. Place the right thumb on the left wrist at the radial artery point. Feel the pulse. Inhale, imagining the current rising through the arm, through the shoulder. Exhale, visualizing that energy descending through the center of the chest, arriving at the belly. Alternate sides. The goal is to re-establish the bridge. The heart beats all the way to the fingertips. When these 4 gestures enter the routine, what changes goes beyond the tension that yields. Sleep deepens. Creativity that was previously suppressed flows again. Relationships gain another quality. Action, previously loaded with effort, begins to feel like the natural consequence of sustained presence. What was blocking your vital force was protection, an old decision of the nervous system that fulfilled a real function at some point. Releasing it is recognizing that contribution and withdrawing its permanence. Signs that the flow has returned are physical and simple. Air descending to the belly without intention, warmth expanding through the chest, the solar plexus softening to the touch, hands more present and warm. When you notice you are returning to old patterns, chest closing, center hardening, use the simplest gesture available. 1 hand on the sternum, 3 cycles of long exhale. That return itself is already untying. Self-healing never needed to be forced. It needed you to untie, in the body, the knots that still confuse protection with prison. If this content touched something in you, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Write in the comments, I untie the knots that were preventing my self-healing from completing. What Awakened Today wants to continue. Click on the icon appearing on screen and watch another transformative video on the channel. Remember, the intelligence that initiates healing within you is the same that organizes the cycles of all life. It always knew. You only needed to make space.